All right, we'll open it up for questions that any of you may have for Shasta. So if you have a question, just raise up your hand and a microphone will come to you because we are recording this for our online students.
Do you have like any contingency plan for what if something happens when you're flying to India? So what happens if you drop an engine or something like that? What kind of contingency plan do you have?
That's a really good question. So we have Aon Risk Solutions based out of Dallas, and one of our advisory council members, board of directors, works for Aon. So her job is to always ask, what if? What if? So we have a dream team member who is working with Aon along with our board of directors. Her name is Rosemary Norman on coming up with these contingency plans. And it's very hard to kind of predict what could happen where, but Aon is giving us a lot of their resources about the different risk levels along the route. And with that, you can kind of tell, what could go wrong, what may go wrong. And from there, we have like kind of a checklist. It's kind of hard to run through a checklist when your engine shuts down, but we have my regular emergency procedures, but it's kind of a plan, a sequence of events that are going to take place in the event if something were to happen. But the good thing is we have the resources at Aon to kind of steer us in a direction of where we can focus along the trip. And part of that looking at those assessments was what came of that is not flying into Afghanistan because of these assessments. But in addition to that, it's like safety is our biggest concern. So we are in the process of putting something together that only a few people on our team are going to know the exact steps. And also, too, JSSI, they are there with their international maintenance support. So I literally have to just pick up the phone and say, help, I'm here. But what's really cool, which makes me feel really spoiled, is this Airwave system. If I'm flying, and for those of you who may or may not know, I'm going to have a log with me. And every 10 minutes, I'm going to be recording my RPM, my CHT, my AGT, everything, all engine data management onto a sheet of paper. And if I start noticing trends or patterns that things are not looking the way it's supposed to look, I can just pick up the phone and call someone, thanks to the Airwave. I know, I really feel spoiled for having this, but it's a great resource to have in the airplane. So you can't predict everything, but as long as you have the mindset that anything could go wrong and you're just cautious about it, that's really the important thing. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Good. Any other questions?
Hi. I'm curious about how you picked up the countries that you're going to, and were there any countries that outright refused that they don't want to hold anything because they don't want the girls to be inspired by you? Were there any countries that completely were like, you're not allowed, allowed to inspire our girls to get into field? Were there any countries that completely rejected?
That's a good question. So the route was really kind of planned out with avgas availability. That's the type of fuel that my airplane takes. So we had to make sure that there was avgas at each stop, and not just avgas, but good quality fuel that is not going to mess up the engine of the airplane. Saudi Arabia was originally on the route, and I did get some confirmation from the ICAO representative from Saudi Arabia that we could go there. It's just, again, some of our risk assessments and the folks at Aon were saying it's just one of those things that now is not the right time. Maybe in a few more years it'll get there. But luckily we haven't had anyone say, no, don't go, don't come here. We don't want you to inspire any of our girls. And again, too, we're working with ICAO, and a lot of their representatives are in aviation, and they're looking for opportunities to bring inspiration into their countries to grow those fields. So that's an advantage that we have going for us. And also some of our partners are helping along the route too with several different events. But avgas was a big one. And then the second thing that we looked at was safety. And then the third, which countries need the outreach efforts. So I hope that answers your question.
We have a question over here.
First of all, love what you're doing and thank you. My question though is, as much as we inspire men or women to fly, there's one thing that still needs to be overcome, and that's the price. Riddle is expensive. I don't know if the scholarship you got took you to Riddle or not, but that's an incredibly expensive program. And even the flight program here at ASU will put our students tens of thousands of dollars in debt for an industry that doesn't pay well right away. Our new pilots are not exactly raking in the money. So we might have a room full of young people who want to become pilots, but can't because of the cost involved, especially a civilian route. I mean, it's one thing to do it through the military, but how do you overcome that? How do you say to somebody with a straight face, hey, become a pilot, and go into this enormous debt that there's no guarantee you're ever going to get out of?
That's a really, really good question that you bring up. And for me, Embry-Riddle was a lot of scholarships that I had to apply for. Some of them were not renewable, so I found myself in this pickle, like, okay, what do I do to keep moving forward? And one thing that I kind of didn't have the chance to stress here, especially with the students, is that some people think that there's one path to getting to wherever it is that you want or whatever you want to accomplish in life. And I was actually speaking with an Embry-Riddle online professor who had all this support and funding, and then he got into his senior year where he couldn't afford it anymore. So he had to actually put school on hold for 9 years just to finish his last semester and graduate. So it is a reality. There's also another reality where NBAA, for example, they had $1 million in scholarships that they awarded last year. I remember I went to the Women in Aviation conference last year, and they gave a maintenance scholarship out to a male because he was the only one who applied. There are a lot of scholarships out there, and believe me, I'm the first one to be a little discouraged because you pour your heart out, you write all these essays, and then you might hear back from them and you might not. I know the industry is looking to making some changes. American Airlines, for example, they're one of them. I actually met with one of their folks at the International Aviation Women's Association conference. They're looking of giving grants up to $20,000 for flight students. We're hoping that the industry will be inspired with how we, our Dream Soar, is trying to help with these scholarship opportunities globally. So we're not just restricting young girls and boys only in the U.S. for these opportunities. It's globally is what we're providing. But the one good thing with our partners is that they usually have some sort of STEM effort, and we're hoping that these scholarship opportunities can be continuous. But to answer your question, there's so many different fields or so many different pilot careers out there, and there is the traditional route of going to a university like Embry-Riddle or Arizona State University where it is very expensive, and then when you start working in the industry, it doesn't pay well. But hopefully that opens young minds to seeing what aviation is like aside from the airlines. It's, here I am getting ready to fly around the world. I mean, there's just so many different avenues, but to answer your question, it's difficult. It's a challenge, especially if it's a young girl, for example, in Afghanistan. I wouldn't really quite know what to tell her, but we are trying, Dream Soar is trying to do something about it. And that is, number one, raise awareness, and number two, provide these opportunities globally to get people through the doors and hopefully inspired to push through with these careers.